5B, Grandfather. The wagons could be heard coming up the road as I stood on the porch enjoying an evening smoke. The caravan had returned larger coming in than when it had gone out, and it appeared that Mrs. Norfolk, Fenton, and Paisley had accompanied the girls back. My initial thought was that Paisley had burned something down and was being returned home. However, everyone seemed to be in high spirits, and no luggage seemed to be riding along. The party dismounted, passing along the horses to the stable boy, and continued inside. It was the first time I had seen Paisley since she left to the cove, roughly a month ago. The time away seemed to do her some good. Perhaps they now thought it was time to come home. "Good evening, Mr. Hogg," Fenton supplied as we approached. "May we come in?" I nodded submission and turned to Mrs. Norfolk, who was still approaching from the carriage. Griella and Marion scurried past with cadence without so much as a word. Fenton followed suit, and I had no doubt he would be heading to the kitchens for a hefty snack. As the girls approached, I had no idea what to expect, but they simply passed off a greeting and hurried inside after Fenton. Mrs. Norfolk, who wasn't in quite the hurry as the others, climbed the steps up the patio and breathed in the silence. "The girls are here to make a request of you, Eldridge," she ventured. "And before you make any decisions, I wanted to speak with you about it." Mrs. Norfolk brushed away some strands of hair from her face and looked straight into my eyes. "Paisley has learned of a local Magus group that schools selected applicants. They have come by this evening to seek your permission to apply. I have seen her progress and talents these last few weeks and believe this to be an excellent choice for her. The schooling wouldn't start until next term, but there are some challenges to undergo before selection day. Fenton's father once applied to the tutelage when he was still a young man, although his path took him in a different direction than our little family. It was a huge accomplishment for him. I believe Paisley would get educational, Magus, and life training all together as well as make vital friendships. Let us not forget that in a position such as this, she might also be an asset to discovering where Tenebra is. "I thank you for your valued opinion, Mrs. Norfolk," I started, but was cut short. "Please, Eldridge, I have asked you to call me Annabelle. There is no need to be so formal. We are practically family now. I appreciate your thoughts on the matter and shall consider them deeply. Shall we continue inside, Annabelle?" It was a lovely evening, as any I'd experienced so far. Children ran through the halls full of laughter, with smiles spread wide upon their faces. Cadence crawled around with Annabelle and was occasionally picked up by one of the other girls as they ran around. It reminded me of my daughter as she toddled about in her youth, then later as she and her friends would rampage around the home. Dinner was also more delightful and full of merriment, though you could feel the atmosphere change as the girls readied themselves to muster up their quarry. Fenton sat wide-eyed with excitement, jabbing food eagerly on his plate, then into his mouth. Alira would pick at her food casually, as one does with proclivities to certain foods. Paisley faded back and forth between thought and the events at the dinner table, often gazing about blankly, then suddenly reeling it in. Meanwhile, Annabelle sat quietly, unperturbed by the energy going around the table. "Well," I offered, breaking the tension and directing everyone's attention towards myself, "to what do I owe this visit, ladies?" Alira started, but was cut short by Paisley. "Grandfather, I would like to have your permission to apply for the tutelage. It is an illustrious school for Magus right here on Mortalis Isle. I can continue my traditional studies as well as learn to control my powers better. I know you don't approve of my powers, but proper control is better than hiding them away and fearing an explosion with any emotional outbreak. Please, Grandfather," Paisley begged. "I think it is a wonderful idea, Grandfather," Alira added. Paisley could learn all the skills she should be, all in one place. No doubt she would make some friends along the way as well. "I will hear no more of this tonight, girls," I remarked, raising my hand to wave off the incoming protests. "This decision bears weighty reflection, and I am unable to make a proper decision this evening. If Mrs. Norfolk and Fenton aren't in any hurry, they may stay the evening in the extra rooms. I'm sure everyone's day has been full and in need of rest." "Thank you, Mr. Ogg. We would be happy to stay the night and make the trip back in the morning," Mrs. Norfolk remarked. Everyone finished their dinner and readied themselves for the night. I excused myself, ready to be on my way with my thoughts in the evening air. A difficult decision would need to be made again.